Right, in American. Good, thanks very much. Welcome to the Joint Waste Collection Services Committee on the 8th of March. I've got apologies for absence from Councillor Colin Dugan of Surrey Heath. Do we have any more apologies for absence?
We've got apologies from Adrian, who normally does our financial update, and his colleague Greta is standing in for him today. And we're just waiting for Councillor Salmon to join us.
Yeah. Okay. While we're waiting, welcome, I think, to Councillor Peter Graves. I think this is your first meeting of this part of the Joint Waste Collection Services Committee, Peter. Oh, sorry, no, hang on, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, sorry, I had clicked it, but I'm taking it from Councillor Leach. I'm the Greener Woking portfolio holder and looking forward to taking part. Thank you.
Good, thank you, welcome. And Marissa, with your hand up.
Yeah, just really quickly to say my laptop's gone into meltdown in that last meeting, so I'm on my phone, and rather than have to sit here with my hand held up in this really awkward position whilst I'm trying to fix the laptop, I'm listening in, but I'm going to have my camera off for a little bit, okay, whilst I just try and get to the bottom of this, because otherwise I'm one-handed and poised in this very weird position. Thanks.
Good luck.
Well, it sounds like you can do some yoga while you're watching, Marissa.
Perhaps.
Okay. Right, thanks very much. So that's agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We've covered that. Agenda item 2, minutes of the last meeting on pages 1 to 6 of the published documents. So that was the public meeting held on the 1st of December 2022. There were 1 or 2 issues that we raised, but I think they will probably be covered in the main body of the meeting rather than going through any particular items. So do we agree that those were a true and accurate record of the meeting from those that were there? Nobody disagreeing? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3, we have declaration of interests. Are there any declarations to be made from anybody here? I just need to go to my second page of screens because I think we've got over 12 of us. Okay, no, nobody's raised a hand on that one, so we'll move on then to item 4, which is quarterly performance review. That's on pages 7 to 20 of the document. Is anybody sort of going to talk to that one and take us through that?
Hi, Councillor. It's me, Kingsley, from Joint Waste Solutions as the Performance and Business Intelligence Officer. So I will go through this report right now. Thank you, Councillor, again. So across Surrey as a whole, tonnages in December 2022 rolling year, I should say, are actually the first time lower than pre-pandemic levels. That's comparing up to December 2019. And then comparing, that was a 4.8% decrease. This is Surrey-wide. And then comparing it to last year was a 7.2% decrease. And that's across all the 4 main waste streams. So that's the Surrey-wide performance. Comparing it to the joint contracted areas for DMR, food and residual, those were in line with Surrey. For Green, Mole Valley was in line with a decrease, but Elmbridge and Surrey Heath and Woking actually experienced increases in their green waste tonnages. So if we go through them individually, Elmbridge DMR saw a decrease of 13% compared to last year, but it was still 3.7% compared to pre-pandemic levels. For food, it was a decrease of 12.4%. And comparing it to pre-pandemic levels was actually 5.1% lower. Residual waste decreased by 5.9%, and then comparing it to the pre-pandemic levels, it was actually 3% higher. Garden waste was 4.9% higher, but it's still 13.8% lower than pre-pandemic levels. For Elmbridge's quarterly recycling rate, it's 55.9, and if we do their 12-month rolling rate, it's 52.9%. Mole Valley DMR was down by 10.8%, and compared to pre-pandemic, it was down by 3.3%. Food was down by 8.6% and was it was very level compared to pre-pandemic levels. The residual was decreased by 4.6%, and comparing it to pre-pandemic levels was 4.2% higher. Garden waste was down by 2.6%, but it's down by 19.2% compared to the pre-pandemic level. Their quarterly recycling rate is 53.3, and their rolling rate is 54.3. So for Surrey Heath, DMR was down by 8.6%, and their pre-pandemic level comparison was lower by 3.6%. Food was down by 17.5%, and then compared to the pre-pandemic levels was down by 7.9%. Residual down by 5.9%, and compared to pre-pandemic levels, 5.8% higher. Garden waste decreased by 15.3%, and comparing to the pre-pandemic levels, actually 12.7% higher for Surrey Heath. Their quarterly recycling rate is 61.4, and their rolling rate is 60.1. Lastly, for Woking, their DMR was down by 6.2%, and we're actually similar levels to pre-pandemic levels. Food was down by 9.8%, and pre-pandemic levels was down by 4.1%. Residual saw a reduction of 3.9%, but it was higher compared to pre-pandemic levels of 7.3%. Garden saw an increase of 6.4%, but it was still 7.7% lower than pre-pandemic levels. Their quarterly recycling rate is 59%, and their rolling rate is 53.6%. Now I'm open to any questions.
Can I just ask then, Kingsley, can you draw any conclusions from all those stats? In most cases, we seem to be decreasing the amount of waste from pre-pandemic levels, and is that a concern? Should we, should certainly for residual waste and food waste, and possibly even garden waste, should we not be trying to encourage an increase?
No.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so it's the first time since I've been doing this report that it's gone down below pre-pandemic levels. There is no clear insight to what it is. What we do think is happening, with no real evidence, I will be honest, is that I don't know if we think the cost of living crisis is having an effect. We've been talking about this within our team already, thinking that people are being more cautious about what they're purchasing, food-wise, residual-wise, like packaging. We're not too sure if that has an effect. That is one of our things that we are trying to figure out how to figure out. But anything else, we've actually got not a real clear pattern of why it's going down. That's basically it, Councillor. Sorry, that's not really that great of an answer, but that's what we've got.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, in general, I think it's not a bad thing. I raised the question earlier, but not a bad thing that these things are going down. I mean, certainly in terms of the DMR, one would hope that will go down as people get used to buying less, to reducing the amount they're purchasing and recycling more, reusing stuff. So maybe actually the figures are showing quite a useful trend. Caroline, I think your hand was up first.
Yeah, it's exactly what you just said. The reason why there is less being collected, it is partly because there's the cost of living, so people are buying less. But this is an effect of the coming in charge that will be put on for packaging. So the supermarkets packaging is physically less thick, and it is less because they're going to be charged more for the plastics and everything else that they are going to be passing on. It's the new regime coming in. It's the supermarkets beginning to think about it. So if you think about over the years, the weight of a jug of milk packaging and the weight of a jug of milk now, they're paring it down so it's as thin as possible and it's lighter. So you're going to get lighter things. And it is partly that people are buying less, but it's also the effect of the legislation. And we'd actually on the DMR, although we can make money out of it, and it would be nice if people gave us their aluminium cans because it gives us the most money when it's sold on. It's actually it's the whole thing working together, and therefore you will get less. And I think on the rubbish side, I mean, there's less card coming in because you buy less online, but everyone is packaging things much, much lighter than they used to do. So because we run on weight, that's why you're getting that reduction, in my mind.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you. Good point, Caroline. Peter.
Sorry, Caroline, I can see your point, and I agree. There's not a lot of a pattern, particularly with the garden waste. The pattern seems to vary tremendously. So, for example, in Surrey Heath, your garden waste tonnages have gone up by 12.7%, whereas in working ours have gone down. So there isn't correlation there. So I think that's what Kingsley was saying, that it's difficult to draw conclusions from that. But it does seem like residual waste tonnages have gone up in 3 authorities that I looked at just then. So that is sort of contradicts kind of what Caroline's just said, in that there's an increase in weight that's going into the residual waste. So I just wondered if there's any response on that at all, Kingsley. Garden waste and residual.
So thank you, Councillor. So garden waste is also a side effect of the suspension of service. So that'll be a slight effect of it. There was suspension of service in the joint contract areas. So the pattern is probably a bit up and down of the services coming back and full collection services starting again.
Is that even comparing, even though we're comparing it with this December 19, is that still the case?
Yes, up to December 19, we had full service, I believe, Joe? Is that correct?
Yeah, I was just going to come in. I think over the winter of 2021, although there were some collection cycles, they took place at different points for different authorities. So I think that's probably adding to the sort of fluctuations between authorities on there. You know, some would have had more missed cycles than others at different points in the year. So that's probably what's influencing that.
Okay.
And residual, residual's a tricky one. Yeah, it has gone down, which is a good sign. But I think because it's, I think if let me just double check. They're all
higher compared with.
Yeah, so they're higher compared to the pre-pandemic levels, as I thought. So it would be that they are going down because that's the natural thing, because we're obviously coming out of lockdown, we're not that, and people are not working from home as much, even though we all are. But like, it's just going down, and I would imagine it just goes down and kind of levels out to the pre-pandemic levels. I don't think it'll go below that. I just think it's trying to reach to that point. And that's the decrease. I don't think it's anything we're doing. I think it's just behavior of residents just being out and about more, no more lockdowns at this moment. And that's just the behavior of what waste is doing.
Sorry, I'm confused there. I don't know if else is, but I see that they're all higher compared to 19. Is that?
Yeah, so they're going down compared to last year, but they're still higher than the pre-pandemic levels. So the pre-pandemic levels could be our, like, let's say it's our baseline, because that's what was standard. There was no lockdowns, people weren't working from home. So we think as a pattern, it's going down compared to last year, because last year we still had, well, last year we didn't really have lockdown, but people were still more confined or being a little bit more cautious. But now we're opening up in the world. Waste is going down, but it hasn't reached the level, our baseline level, which is up to December 2019.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Kingsley. Yep, do continue then. So we got the Q2 performance. Are you going to talk to that one, the next paragraph there, Kingsley? SEP joint strategy performance, Q2.
Sorry about that. Yes. Shit. Yeah, so that's just on the dashboards. That is just what we've been reporting on waste data flow. So it nothing really too exciting to report there. But yeah, if there's any questions about that, I wasn't really going to refer to that, but if anyone has any questions about that, I'm more than happy to discuss.
Okay, no, so yeah, we're looking at lots of lovely tables and graphs there. So unless there are any sort of individual council specific questions, I think we could move on, because that sort of gets to the end of that report, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. No hands up on that one. Good. Thanks very much for that, Kingsley.
Thanks, James.
So next section 5, or agenda item 5, is from Danielle, I think, on the Amy contract improvement update.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will just share my screen. I've got some slides prepared for you this morning. Are we able to see the slide deck?
Yes, we can see that.
Fabulous. Okay, so just 3 things to update on this morning. So I've got an update on the business continuity plans for you all. I've got a brief update on our health and safety and people function, and then just a review of the improvement strategy from the past year and any outstanding actions on that which are likely to carry forward into the following year's improvement plan. So an update on the business continuity plans. The recent amendments to the business continuity plan following the industrial action in August 2022 have been shared back and forth between Amy and JWS. Comments are now at a point whereby we can jointly hold a workshop to finalise the document. So we have a meeting planned tomorrow to sit jointly to go through that. And then following any actions after that meeting, we will look to prioritise an external testing of that business continuity plan so we can test its robustness and then amend anything that comes back as not being quite right in that plan. An update on the people and health and safety function. So as reported at previous meetings, recruitment has stabilised across all contract areas. We are able to attract new candidates and fill any vacant roles without difficulty. The Woking depot has had a new assistant manager join on the 13th of February. He has a wealth of experience in the waste industry and managing waste collection, so we're confident that Neil will be a strong addition to the team and help the depot to further improve their employee engagement and performance. Our discussions have started with the GMB and Unite, and they're underway for all of the 4 contract areas. So Unite represent Mole Valley and GMB the other 3 contract areas. The GMB have been to each of those depots and held pay review meetings with the frontline employees. And we have a meeting with the GMB on the 16th of March to discuss the expectations of the frontline from those meetings and his pay proposal. Moving on to safety, we continue to put our main focus on safety on the contract. Throughout March, we are planning to hold safety stand down days at all 4 depots. We've created a short video showing high potential incidents from recent months, which we will share with crews. There may be some delays to collection on these days, but we've chosen the days which we believe will have the least impact on residents. And we'll be asking crews to stay in the depot for an hour or so in the morning so that we can have a deep dive into the health and safety with them and pick up on some lessons learned from recent accidents. So once we've agreed those dates internally, we'll communicate them with JWS to make sure that we can get some comms out to the residents. We don't expect there to be incomplete collections on the days, rather that there may be collections carried out a little later than ordinary. On to the improvement strategy. So we've got in blue here at the bottom when we talk about garden waste services. So aligning the subscriptions for residents on additional containers. So for Surrey Heath and Woking, all existing accounts have been aligned.
Oh, you've suddenly frozen there, Danielle.
Yeah, we lost.
Can you hear us? No, we seem to have lost you. Is there anybody from, has Danielle got any sort of backup from Amy that could come in?
She's gone.
No.
So yeah, I probably wouldn't do the report justice if I read through it. So it's probably I'm sure she'll dial back in. I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that agenda item then when we've got Danielle back again. So we could go on to agenda item 6, Q3 budget update. Who's going to talk to that one? Somebody from JWS?
I believe Greta's here in covering for Adrian, who would normally do it. Is that, or have I misunderstood?
Greta, are you happy to pick that one up? We can't see you, Greta, but you don't appear to be on mute. No. Okay.
Hello?
We seem to... Oh,
Can you-
hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Greta. Yes, we can hear you now, Greta.
Yeah, sorry. So my understanding was that I kind of want probably needing to cover that. I'll just be covering the meeting. So that's kind of a bit awkward now because that's what Adrian led me to believe. So I don't know how we're going to do that because I kind of haven't looked at the financials. So I was just covering the meeting.
Okay. I don't know whether Joe, whether you want to step in and just take us through some of the highlights of Q3 budget update. Can't hear you at the moment, Joe.
Sorry, that would also help if I unmuted. But I will do my best. Sorry, let me just get to the right. I've got the report open. I'm just not on the right page yet. Sorry, bear with me a moment. Yes, let me try and pick out some key and important points for you. Effectively, the report sets out the budget situation as up to the end of Q3. It clarifies the variances around the two elements of the service, the CMO budgets, which are currently projecting an underspend, mainly because we've had some vacant posts within the team. And there's also some underspends on other costs such as training and travel budgets so far this year. The support costs are slightly underspent because of some changes in the way that Surrey support us through their finance team. And equally, there's a legal budget which is available should we require it, but so far has not been spent to any great extent. There are some elements around the communications and engagements budgets too, which are detailed in the report, that have also not spent the full amount or are projecting to spend the full amount by the end of the year. Although there was an increased cost around the distribution of service guides because of changes in the way that those are delivered to households across the contract area and costs associated with them going up. There's a couple of elements that contribute to the reasons behind the overspends on the contract. Much of that is around the inflationary uplift that was applied from the 1st of April. When we set the budget back in November 21, we had estimated that that would be around 4% uplift on the contract rates, but the final figure was in fact 6.71%. There is a breakdown table in the report which summarises those variants in more detail. There are some elements that will be underspent due to reductions in demand for those services, or those requests are lower than anticipated from residents for particular areas of work. Whereas in other places we've seen an increased spend. The garden waste budget is obviously also impacted by some of the service suspension which continued into the current financial year before services were fully restored in May. There's also an additional cost that was approved after the budget had been formally agreed in November 21 regarding the market supplement, which was supporting Amy's payment to drivers to ensure recruitment was successful there, and that's detailed as well. And there's a note included at the end there which just sets out that we had used a rate of 10% for inflation when we were setting the budget in December for April 23 onwards. As it stands, it's looking as though that will come on in under that estimate, so it will be slightly lower than we had anticipated, but we should receive final figures on that within the next couple of weeks, and then obviously we'll be agreeing the contract rates in line with Amy, so that we can ensure invoices from the 1st of April are all applied at the new rates. Sorry if I've not done that justice, but hopefully that's a useful recap.
Yeah, good. Thanks for stepping in on that, Jo. Yeah, so I mean, my reading of this then, in summary, in total, we've got a projected underspend of £235,000. So despite the HGV driver supplement of £358,000, because of the underspends in other areas, we will have a total underspend. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my interpretation of events as well. I think what's I suppose is necessary to point out that you know, those variable charges might be underspent in some areas, but those are areas that the authority, there are chargeable services for the authority. So if we're seeing less demand and therefore the costs of providing that service are reduced, we're also potentially seeing reduced income linked to that as well.
Okay, good, thanks. Any questions on that? I can't see any hands. Okay, good. Thanks very much. I don't know whether we've got Danielle back again.
I have returned, I apologise.
Oh, you are here. Do you want to go back then, Daniel, and we'll finish off your report?
Where did we get to? I finished the presentation and then realised that I was talking to myself.
Well, we got sort of as far as the improvement strategy.
Should we start here then? Can we see it and can we hear?
Yep, both of those.
So looking at the improvement strategy for 22-23 on the garden waste, there is an outstanding action at the bottom here to align any further additional containers with the current subscription residents have got. So that remains on the improvement plan. Is very much a live action with Whitespace to get that in Whitespace and fully functional. Other outstanding items on the Whitespace improvement plan are bin stock take. So we've got an improvement action on there where we can record all stock we hold for container orders, and it will effectively track stock in and stock out. There's an outstanding item for chargeable and non-chargeable forms, and also an outstanding action for Mole Valley streets to be loaded onto tablets so that the crew members in Mole Valley can utilise the Whitespace technology when they're out and about on street cleansing jobs. For KPIs, this is pretty much complete and nearly there. So we have a KPI dashboard now which feeds into Power BI, which will give the site managers sight of their performance in the previous 7 days. So it allows the site managers to pick up on their best performing crews and celebrate their performance, as well as identifying crews that are high impacting in terms of missed collections, and they can put performance improvement plans in place with those crews. It also allows us to print out a lot of pretty coloured kind of bar charts that have the rank of the best and worst crews, so it creates quite a lot of competition within the depots, which helps to drive the performance. Elmbridge is high impacting in terms of KPIs against the other depots, but that's because their dashboard doesn't feed directly from Whitespace at the minute. But I understand we're due to move fully across to Whitespace from the 1st of April. So hopefully next time we meet, we'll have some good progress on the Elmbridge depot and the KPIs. In terms of sustainability, so HVO, following the Woking fuel tank being decommissioned, I believe there are some commercial discussions ongoing as to whether that fuel tank could be reinvented or repaired to take HVO fuel, which would give us an opportunity to trial that across the contract. Looking at fleet supply and parts, so we understand from recent kind of issues with fleet supply that we often wait quite a long time for vehicle parts to come in. We've previously relied on a third-party supplier for that, and they often get the wrong parts, or we wait kind of 2 to 3 months for parts to come in. So recognising this, our fleet manager has held meetings with our top 3 suppliers, Mercedes, Iveco and Dennis, and we're now able to order directly from those suppliers. They're also looking at the trend in parts that the vehicles have needed, and we're looking at having stock on the shelves at those 3 suppliers ready to be delivered kind of the same day, so that we can reduce the vehicle off the road time. We're also working with Trafford to understand the trend of the repairs on their vehicle and ours. Our vehicles are of similar ages to Trafford, so if we can get ahead of the game and understand what parts we're likely to need in the next 3 to 6 months, we can preempt it and also reduce the vehicle off the road time. On to zero code and safety. So Amy have got a new healthcare provider. They've partnered with Aviva Plus, which enables our employees to book GP appointments virtually when they're not able to get appointments with their local surgery. That service is also available for their direct family members. Other benefits of it are that they get a free health check annually, and there's also an allowance for mental health support on there as well. For the route round risk assessments, our health and safety manager wrote a new procedure just before Christmas. This was approved by JWS in early this year, and following that approval, we've been asked if we can put a list together of common road hazards that we could potentially extract from the Surrey Highways data. So I think we've given that to JWS, and we last discussed this at our board meeting in February. And once we've got a list of those hazards, we can start reviewing those route round risk assessments and really pushing that project forward. Zero code, I already touched on the safety stand down days that will take place in March. And then the final item is there, the new safety calendar for 2023 is being worked on to include targeted themes based off of health and safety performance in the past year. This is just a screenshot of the Power BI dashboard that our site managers have sight of on a daily, weekly basis. So this will tell them their overall missed collection performance in the depot, as well as their missed assisted collections, whether they've returned to reported missed collections within the agreed SLA, and also their repeat missed collections. So they can drill down, if they click on any of these parameters on here, they can drill down and get specific addresses and ensure that they are engaging with their crews to push that performance forward. Since the implementation of the dashboard, we've seen real improvements in Mole Valley. So their performance improved by 28% month on month after they had access to the dashboard. Woking and Surrey Heath were already delivering a strong performance, so remain kind of static. And Elmbridge, we've seen a reduction in 43% on their KPI deductions after they had access to the dashboard. The difficulty with Elmbridge is that it is a bit more of a delayed set of data, but we're working on the manual intervention for that to ensure that the depot manager has the best information available to them. That's it from me. Did I make it through? Have I got to do it for the 3rd time?
Ashley, you're muted, just so you know.
Oh, sorry. I was saying thank you very much. You came back to us and you got to the end. So thank you for that presentation. Question for me on the discussions with GMB and Unite, and you've got this meeting with GMB on the 16th. Is there any sense of unrest and possible repeat action that we saw last August, or are the discussions on pay fairly amicable at the moment? Is that possible to have a comment on?
I think what I'll say at the minute is I think the relationship with the GMB is better. It's more positive at the minute because they are coming to the table regularly. There's regular dialogue with them via email and kind of via those virtual meetings. The 16th of March will be the first time he presents to us his expectation for pay rises from April onwards. So I think that will be kind of the first real indication of how we think things are going to go.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from anybody?
Yeah, I just put my hand.
Right. Caroline? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm really impressed that we've gone up 28% improvement in Moor Valley. And one of the things I've been noticing is that there seem to be an awful lot of blocked roads reported. And I just wondered if they really are blocked roads, or if it's more of a well, I don't particularly want to go down there, and the guys aren't prepared to go. I had one block road where it was garden waste bins, and I thought, well, it was only 3 houses. They could have just walked down there, got the bins and brought them back. So I just wondered if missed roads are causing anyone a problem, if you're aware of it. Blocked roads are causing anyone a problem.
Thank you, Councillor Sam. And I think for Mole Valley, the blocked access is quite minimal. I take your point that it may have increased recently. I think a point to note with the garden waste vehicle is that there isn't a narrow access garden waste vehicle, so we're relying on a 26-ton garden vehicle to collect the majority of residents. We have the one super narrow round that does the real rural stuff, and sometimes if that vehicle, if the 7.5-ton vehicle isn't available, they'll have to use a 15-ton vehicle, which can present issues. But the depot managers are happy to kind of go back the following morning and reattempt that collection. So if there's any kind of repeat issues that you're aware of, I'm happy to pick that up individually.
I'm okay. It's just Ashton that complain.
Okay, thanks. And Mark?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'd be grateful to be kept in the loop of any plans you have regards fuel supply at the depot, please. I think I chased one of your colleagues after a conversation we had in January recently, but I've still not heard back from Richard. So yeah, any plans you've got, be grateful to hear about those, please.
Thank you, Mark. I'll chase the latest update on that from kind of the safety team, commercial team, and I'll make sure that we're all in the loop and on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Peter?
Yes, thank you. I picked up something about garden waste. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this, but what sort of percent of resubscription do we have from the garden waste subscribers on an annual basis? Would you be able to tell me that, Danielle?
Thank you, Councillor Graves. I do not have that specific information to hand now, but happy to take it away as an action point and feed back to yourselves after I've spoke to the data team that we've got dealing with the garden waste subscriptions.
Thank you. Yeah, and the supplementary to that is how we keep a record of that, because it seems like some people are having garden waste bins left unemptied because they're registered as actually not having subscribed, when in fact they have. And the notices that they're receiving are don't always get to them, so the letters don't always arrive, and then they get labelled. The bins get labelled. In fact, when they shouldn't be. So there have been issues in Woking, a couple of streets, quite severe issues, and I did mention this to Joe earlier. So I just hope that we can move on from that. And my suggestion was that instead of labelling the bin on the, as it were, and leaving it full, that we do that 2 weeks beforehand to advise the user that their bin subscription is going to be out of date in 2 weeks' time. So I think Joe's going to take that away anyway, but I just wanted to raise that in this forum as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. And Ray?
Yeah, thanks. I thought it was just worth acknowledging all the improvements that have gone through, because I think we do spend all our time throwing bricks at each other, and actually there's some really good stuff in this report that on driver numbers, on performance management, etc., that I just thought we should acknowledge rather than just nodding through, if you see what I mean. So.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, thanks very much, Ray, and thank you, Danielle, for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions on that. I think we've got a couple of reports from Neil. So we've got the additional national insurance claim, agenda item 7.
Certainly, and just to add to that last point by Ray and your point, Councillor Salmon, I'm really pleased, and I know Danielle, you put in a recent fix on the blocked access through the white space system, where it goes back to the same crew later that day and gets managed greatly. So it shows there's lots of improvement still going on. Bringing on swiftly to the two reports which I've submitted. It's the additional bank holidays and additional national insurance that we've seen in this financial year for us, last financial year for Amy. And Amy have calculated that the additional bank holidays had a cost of operating the service, as has the additional national insurance. You'll see that we're recommending that both claims are agreed to, because we've taken legal advice that it is a change in law, and therefore Amy are entitled to the sums. Wasn't going to go into much more detail than that unless there's any specific questions.
Do we need to sort of formally approve those additions, Neil?
Yes, certainly. That was going to be my request if there wasn't any questions. Is that obviously the recommendation in the paper is asking you to approve those spends above the budget.
Okay, so let's take the first one. We've got the additional national insurance claim, which is due to the government increasing national insurance to 15.05%, but then decreasing it a few months later. But we're asked to evaluate, Amy's evaluated the cost as £47,727.24, and we're asked to approve that additional cost. I'll take it by exception. If anybody disagrees, then now is the time to say.
Is that split equally?
The table, the paper sets out the table between each party.
Yeah.
It's been calculated based on operatives, where Amy have been able to allocate this, and then where they have a management budget line, it's been split by partnership share.
Yeah. So there's a table on page 25 there, Caroline, showing the breakdown. Okay, nobody against that. And then the next one, then, agenda item 8, was the additional 2022 bank holiday claim. The claim is, where is the figure? Well, it's just recommended the committee accept Amy's claim for increased additional costs resulting from a qualifying change in the law. The figures there are in the table. We've got a total of £143,228.27. Do we approve that recommendation?
Why do they get triple time on a Saturday? Is this built into the paperwork?
Absolutely. So
it used to always be double time for bank holidays.
And so the paper sets out, and as Danielle will know, and her colleagues, we had some back and forth on this. The triple time pay relates to the Queen's funeral, and that's because it's designed to replicate what happens at Christmas, where for the Christmas catch up, Amy pay the staff triple time on the Saturday, and because it's a non-contractual element of their working, there was a concern that if the same terms and conditions weren't replicated to what standardly happens at Christmas, then the workforce wouldn't show in and we wouldn't be able to catch up that work.
Does that apply to the Jubilee as well then, or was that double time?
So Jubilee, Amy, because there was a greater notice of that, and please come in, Danielle, to correct anything that's wrong. Amy offered, because they actually worked the day of the Jubilee bank holiday. So Amy were due to pay ×1 salary, for example. So that was deducted from the claim total. And then the staff were given the option of either having an additional day to make up for the fact that they worked a bank holiday, or to have, and then they'd get double time, or they don't get an additional day and they get triple time, which is why the values are slightly less. And Amy in their claim provided substantial and individual backing data to show each individual choice, and I was able to run through that with their commercial team.
Okay, good, thanks. That gives us a little bit more background detail. are we happy to?
Would officers have seen this before we see it today?
Yes, it came to board a
So
fortnight
did
ago.
the board agree this effectively without members being told?
The board passed a recommendation that the paper gets carried to committee for your decision.
You happy with that, Caroline?
Not really, but I don't think that. No, I mean, I just think it's becoming quite a lot of money, and we have to find another, 30, 40, 50,000 when we have a budget where we look at every pound. I mean, if there's no objection to it from everybody else, then I can't be the person standing out saying no. But I do find this triple time thing and a day in lieu plus time too, or it's an awful lot for doing that. But if they have that written into their work contracts, then we have no option.
Absolutely, we appreciate that, Councillor Salmon, and we had some conversations with Amy about that. But as you say, it is a qualifying change in law. Therefore, Amy are entitled to claim that money back from the authorities. And given what they've set out in the decision-making process, I think it is a justifiable cost, albeit as you say, it is a substantial amount of money and goes to show how much money the service costs to run on a day-to-day basis.
I can't object if everyone else agrees it.
Yeah, I think because it's been run past the legal advisors and it's it's in the contract, it's very difficult for us to raise any objections. I just wonder whether, presumably, Neil, you're looking ahead to the coronation extra day of bank holiday and what the implications of that will be.
Absolutely, and that
I would
one.
hope that would be on the lower level.
Well, that one will be
that
one will be the normal, replicating the normal situation of working on the bank holidays. Amy will obviously be have budgeted for paying one lot of salaries, so it'll only be the difference between that and the additional bank holiday. The Queen's funeral was an exception because it was felt as a mark of respect that the crew shouldn't operate on that day, which is why it had to replicate the Christmas practice rather than the standard bank holiday practices, and where the additional costs came from.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry,
Peter,
yeah, just a quick one. I mean, I just wonder how this compares to other contracts across the country or across the county. How is this fairly typical?
I think I'll let other officers speak for other contracts, but that was obviously one of our considerations. And George, I know yourselves have many contracts with many local government officials, including the collection contract in Trafford, and very much this replicates what occurred there. And it comes down to those provisions in the contract for change in law.
Yeah, it's paid on other waste contracts. Got a waste contract in Trafford, and it's the same thing. We're asking our workforce to work on a bank holiday that they would expect to have off. We need to pay them that to get them in. I think the only difference between JWS and Trafford was I think Trafford paid the additional bank holiday immediately.
Okay, good. Thanks very much. Agenda item 9, Joint Waste Solutions Work Programme 22-23 Progress Report. Is that Nick to talk about?
That's me.
That's Joe. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so I'm conscious, obviously we had quite a full agenda today, and there's a lot of detail in the report, so I didn't want to go into too much detail on this one other than to pull out some of the sort of headlines, I guess. And really just to update on a few key items that we've seen progress on in the last weeks and months since the meeting in December. So areas where we've seen projects really kind of see some significant movement, for example, is with our litter bin project. This covers work that will be carried out in Elmbridge, Surrey Heath and Mole Valley, areas where we manage the street cleaning service and only deliver the litter bin emptying on the ground. It's in different stages in each of those 3 areas, but with an overall aim across all 3 to review the existing bin provision, look at options for replacing and renewing litter bins, but also establish some improved reporting processes for residents who need to let us know that there's a problem with a litter bin. We've seen campaigns, communications delivered over Christmas and the New Year, which focused on seasonal messages on recycling and reducing contamination. We've seen the Rethink Waste numbers continue to keep growing in Elmbridge, which is a real positive, given that that project will be taken forward as part of the SET programme of work next year. We've started the review of the residents that utilise the assisted collection in 2 or 3 of the 4 areas. It might actually be up to now, but I'll have to reconfirm whether that's definitely the case. But certainly at the time of writing the report, in 2 of those areas, we had started contacting those service users to check that their requirements are still the same and make sure those lists are up to date. We've been working with Mole Valley and Elmbridge to progress work on the IT integration, which will see their web forms link into Whitespace, which will deliver some improvements on how, you know, the Amy Depot and Elmbridge in particular work with the system, and help us ensure the data is collected and collated in the same way everywhere. And then internally across the team, we finalised the work on our lone worker protocol, which sets out how we ask our colleagues to work safely when they're out and about on their own, and make sure that we've got that embedded across the team, so everyone's following the same sets of procedures, whether they're the operations staff working in the joint contract area or the projects team that work across the county. I'm happy to answer questions on any part of that report, but as I said, I just wanted to touch on a few of the highlights that we've seen in the last couple of months.
Good, thanks, Joe. Any questions on that? Let me just go through everybody on the Zoom call. No? Good, thanks very much. Yeah, I suppose it's fairly self-explanatory. We've got lots of detail there in the report, so thank you for all that. I mean, just to mention that the Rethink Waste scheme in Elmbridge, by advertising it to Garden Waste subscribers, we went up from 1,700 subscribers for Garden Waste to over 3,000. So that was actually quite a good thing to do. And as it's rolled out across Surrey, I think, you know, the communications on that needs to go out to try and encourage as many people as possible to subscribe to the Green Redeem scheme. It's a good scheme. It's very family friendly. There are videos, there are quizzes, there are pledges to be made, and each time you do that, you get a number of points. And the great thing was getting some competition between schools as to which school could actually get the most number of points and therefore get the biggest check. So the money mattered in the end, but a good scheme, and I would commend it to all other councillors and councils. Peter, you have a question.
Sorry, yeah. Is that rolled out? Sorry, I rewinding what you just said. Is that rolled out and working already, or is it due out?
So as part of this, sorry, I was going to say, as part of the Surrey Environment Partnership Programme of work for the new financial year, that will be rolled out across Surrey. Okay. So it hasn't commenced yet, but it will not be too far in the future.
So the other question, my main question really about was food waste and what we're doing to increase the recycling of food. Is that a good point to ask that question?
Yes, and it can probably come into the next item as well, as we're looking into the programme for next year. I think there's a range of ways that we aim to sort of tackle improvements in service, and that's whether that's delivering on the ground changes, so working with teams elsewhere in JWS that deliver some work on behalf of SET, which sees us introduce food waste services to new areas which haven't got them already, so that primarily tends to be communal properties. And then there's work that our comms team will undertake to promote the service and encourage people to make use of it. There's some activities that have gone on this year which looked at targeted interventions, so that's contacting residents using a range of different methods, whether that's letters or other communications material, to discourage people from putting food waste into their residual bin and make sure that they're using the separate weekly collection. So examples of that would be either letters that have gone out to people about the service or stickers going onto the residual bins that ask people not to put the food waste into there. The learnings from all those tests and trials of different methods then help inform those programs and how we take those elements forward, which are most successful, which have the most impact. And then obviously within the team, if we are seeing areas where there are issues with the service, we obviously will be looking to resolve those and encourage people to kind of restart using it if they've stopped because of a particular problem with the service delivery on the ground.
Because it does seem to be fairly stubbornly stuck at a certain percentage, and I'm really keen to see that improve, partly because it costs so much more to put it into the residual bin. So it seems to me like it's an easy win if we can save quite a bit of money actually by making sure people put food waste in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, true. Okay, I think we've already sort of touched upon the next agenda item then, which is the work programme for 23-24. So let's go into that, which is again led by you, Jo, if you want to kick off.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to share a couple of slides to help me sort of walk through this. I think, again, it's a report with a lot of detail in it, so I appreciate there's a lot of information there, so I equally didn't want to replicate and talk through every element of it, but rather share some highlights and talk about the process we've been through in developing this programme. So if you can bear with me a moment while I click the right buttons to share my screen. Hopefully can you see that first slide?
Yes, we
We
can.
can. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Right. As I say, yes, I just wanted to talk through really more some background as to how we've arrived at the programme that we've developed and asking for approval for next year. So first of all, what I wanted to do is just recap the context that we've been working in, because this year JWS have been developing both the work programme for the contract area as per normal, but also being involved in agreeing the delivery plans that are agreed with each of the individual authorities that are linked to SEP 2025. These two programmes or plans do serve slightly different purposes, but there is of course an element of overlap, as the JWS team will be playing a role in helping to undertake activities in the delivery plans, whether that's in conjunction with colleagues at the authorities or pieces of work that we'll be delivering directly ourselves. So where appropriate, we wanted to obviously reflect that in our own work programme for the year for the 4 joint contract authorities. You'll note in the appendix to the report, we've put some of those activities in bold where they are cross-cutting and feature on both elements. So the work programme captures at a high level the everyday work that we'll be undertaking, as well as the improvement projects that are designed to improve our services. And that's whether that's expanding collection times, such as more food to flats, promoting services that we don't think maybe used to their full potential, or things that enable us to work more efficiently, and that this joint contract programme work is delivered by the JWS team. As I said, the delivery plans are linked to SEP 2025 and ultimately link into the financial arrangements between the districts and boroughs and the county council. They cover activities that support the JWS and the SEP work programmes, but also some individual actions which are designed to address a particular topic or exploit some specific opportunities. And these SEP plans, delivery plans, are a combination of work that's being delivered by authority officers, whether that's communications, enforcement teams and other colleagues across the councils, activities that will be delivered just by JWS, but also those that will be delivered jointly by us all. So really just to explain the process that we've gone through to develop the programme for 23-24, we obviously started with where we've got to in the work programme for the current year. What activities are we still doing? What's been completed? Are there things that will be outstanding? Or are there elements of completed work that will lead into future developments of new projects? We've looked at what data is telling us about how the services and the recycling performance in particular is the trends there, and where there are opportunities that we can improve performance and develop ways to target new ways to get recycling levels up or change the way we do things. We had a workshop with the JWS team to consider what ideas they have, whether that's related to service delivery or again those sort of data sets and the performance information that we have available to us. We collated all of that information and all the feedback we had through that process to come up with, effectively a long list of areas that we needed to consider as pieces of work for the next financial year. We determined whether those were things we must be doing, should be doing, things we could be doing, or areas that we decided probably shouldn't feature in the programme going forward. In tandem with that, we obviously needed to look at not just the budget that we have to deliver some of these activities, but also the resource that we have across the team, and how and when we'd start to deliver some of the improvement projects in particular alongside the business as usual work. So effectively we've taken the budget, our resourcing, where we've got to, the delivery plans that are also being developed alongside these, and come up with a revised programme of work for next year. In doing so, we have amended the objectives slightly. Obviously the vision we have for what we're trying to deliver and what we're setting out to achieve hasn't really changed. So broadly, the objectives are the same, but really for a sort of functional purpose in terms of how we set out the programme of work and how we report on it going forward, we have made an amendment to not have a separate objective here that specifically talks about carbon reduction, because we found that there was such an overlap, mainly with areas of work we have under objective 1, and we'd be effectively duplicating the same activity in 2 different places within the way we report on it. So rather than have that separately, we will adopt those activities mostly under objective 1 because of the links they have with efficiency of services, contract monitoring and data management activities. I'm happy to talk about some of the activities, business as usual, and projects that sit under each of those objectives if there's any questions, but again, conscious of time, and I don't want to waffle on unnecessarily if everyone's kind of happy with what's in there. So I'll simply ask if there's any questions, but if those questions are to set out a bit more background, then I'm happy to do so. I'll stop sharing now so everybody can see who's here.
Good, thank you very much, Jo. Funnily enough, I was going to ask a question while Danielle is here on what was work programme item number 6, which was support the Joint Contract Authorities carbon reduction plans, which you've now removed from those objectives. But it was just to ask Danielle what sort of intentions there are for more of a green fleet, particularly replacing some of your street cleaning vehicles with more environmentally friendly vehicles over the next couple of years.
Thank you, Councillor Tilling. I think we've had some baseline discussions with JWRS around a number of vehicles that are due replacement on the contract. Some of those are caged vehicles and some are sweepers. I think where we're at currently, as we've discussed, the risk in terms of whether that technology is really tested and ready to go in that kind of industry. We've discussed issues with the caged vehicles, whereby adding the electric option to them actually greatly increases the weight of the vehicle. So we'd have to understand the impact of having to have drivers with a higher license category in order to drive those vehicles, as well as the infrastructure being ready in Surrey for the charging, etc., of those vehicles. So I think we're still in discussion. We haven't agreed to replace them with like for like at the minute, and not considering the greener option. But I think there is probably quite a number of hurdles before we're ready to take on an electric fleet.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much. I think all 4 councils have signed up to carbon reduction by 2030 for our operations. So I think we'd all be quite keen on seeing a greener fleet for our waste services. So you'd certainly, I think, get the support of most of our councillors on doing what you can. I think in terms of heavier vehicles, JCB, for example, have gone straight for hydrogen fueled vehicles rather than electric vehicles, so they get a greater power without the need for a vast increase in weight of the vehicle through the batteries. So it might be something that could be looked at, whether we sort of almost skip a generation of electric vehicles and go straight onto what I think is probably the stronger future, which is hydrogen vehicles. But at least those discussions are taking place, so that's good to know. Caroline.
Totally following on from that, we've had discussions on this before, and I think that Johnson's engineering down in Dorking, although I think they're called something like Blucher now, they have been looking at road sweepers that were electric, and the trials have not been very positive. So I think the fact that the hydrogen is even coming in is probably a good thing. But of course, there are other alternative fuels that are still carbon less or less carbon, which need to be considered. And it isn't a simple A, B or C. It's what's best for the job. And the heavier the vehicle gets, the less it can use electric. We've got the Surrey Connect buses, which have only got 80 miles on a full charge. And they're finding that if they can easily run it down if they put the heating on, for example. So there's all sorts of problems that these alternative vehicles are still coming up with. So it's good to see that it's being looked into.
Yeah, fully agree.
I was just going to add, yes, we had a really helpful meeting with some of Amy's fleet team a few months ago, who was, setting out some of those considerations. We essentially are waiting for a proposal from Amy that sets out what they believe the right choice is for the contract at this moment in time, when those vehicles need to be replaced, so that we can take those proposals forward and get approval for those replacement vehicles as required.
Joe, I just like to note though that the length of time it's taken to produce these proposals and for them to be looked at. We've got a sweeper fleet, and some of them are suffering from a lot of time off the road because they're not fit for purpose now. They should have been replaced. I would say that we need to replace those sweepers in the short term anyway, because I think the longer term greener options, you don't have the infrastructure at the moment to do it. You don't have the charging points, you don't have hydrogen fueling facilities, and the sweepers won't give you the range that are required. So to ensure that we continue with a good service, we need to change the sweepers now, really.
Don't disagree. My understanding is that action currently sits with your team to produce that proposal for us, so that we can bring that through and get that.
Yeah, I think we've produced lots of different proposals, but we're not going to get to a solution that's going to give you a green fleet at the moment. So what I'm saying is we just need to replace the sweepers with like for like.
George, just on that, I think your team have asked not to replace like for like, and that's why we're waiting for the proposal.
Yeah, but well, I'm just saying we prevaricated on this, and it's costing a lot of money to keep these sweepers on the road. In fact, a lot of them are actually very difficult to keep on the road because the parts aren't available.
I look forward to you bringing the matter up with Nadeem.
I don't think there's going to be anything new brought to the table, so I just think we need to go on.
We have an monthly operations board meeting. There's a live action on that from Nadeem to write that report for us. Yeah. So as soon as we have that, we will take it through the required process.
Okay, but I think when you get any more information, I think the option to come back and ask for more information is not sensible. We just need to make a decision.
If that report covers the items that we've asked for, then absolutely we'll take it forward. But the information we provided to date didn't have that supporting argument behind it, which helps the authorities understand why we're going the route we're going, and that's what we're still waiting for.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a difficult issue, isn't it? There's the balance of replacing in the short term against a much longer term future of trying to make ourselves as carbon neutral as possible, which needs the associated infrastructure. So I can absolutely understand your point there, George. Right, are there any other questions on Joe's proposed work programme? No? Good. We've been bludgeoned into silence by a very comprehensive report. So thanks for that, Joe.
Excellent. Just to confirm then that we'll take that forward as is without any amendments, and obviously work that into a timeline of delivery for the team for next year. Thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks. Which brings us on to item 11 then, date of next meeting, which is proposed to be Thursday the 29th of June at 11:30 a.m. I don't think we need to discuss that. Right, is there any other business, anything else that people want to raise while we're here? In which case I'll say thank you very much. And just to note that this will be Caroline's last meeting as she's standing down as a councillor. So I think we ought to record our thanks for all the work and the time that Caroline has put into these sessions. Her contributions are always very valuable. So thank you very much, Caroline, and we wish you all the best in your retirement.
Oh, I'm not going to retire. I'm looking for another job.
Well, you could always work for JWS.
I don't think that's allowed, actually.
I
Thank
don't know.
you very much. So it's been fun.
Get away with it.
Okay.
Good. So thank you very much, and thanks everybody for attending, and we'll see you in 3 months' time.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks,
all.
Caroline.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you,
Bye
Ashley.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.